Okay, real quick, let's take a look at that KD ratio. We are at 1.892. Continues to go up, which means I am getting better at hitting moving things, whether that is bot or human. At this point, I don't really care. The fact is, I can hit them. FYI, this is the first video with a new microphone. I got so many comments about, get a new mic. Your voice is going up and down, up and down. It sounds weird. So I ponied up $100, and I am working now 100% in Linux. I'm using KDN Live Linux tool to splice the videos. I am using OBS Studio to overlay my voice, and the microphone is Blue Yeti, which was basically plug and play for Linux. So anybody who wants to do Linux, it's working great. I'm still tweaking the audio settings so I'm not overpowering the gameplay, and I'm not overpowering the mic. When my voice gets a little bit louder, I don't want it to oversaturate and sound weird. I'm still playing with it. If you guys have any hints or suggestions, as you know, I read every single comment, which is kind of the whole point of this video. One of the comments that I just got recently, because I posted a short yesterday pointing to the Wednesday workup, or workup Wednesday. First off, I got a guy saying this is trash content. So to him, thanks for watching. I appreciate it. You know, it might be trash content to you, but for people who don't know how to use an M4A1 tripwire wall-mounted anti-vehicle mine, it's not trash content, right? That's kind of an arrogant statement to make. This is trash content because I didn't find any use out of it. Well, okay, well, good for you. The other one is this one, because in the video, if you haven't seen it, you know, heads up, right? When a tank's driving by these mines, there's 3 of them. So I go 1, little 2, little 3, little Indians. And this guy posted, did you just, oops, racist and inappropriate, but hey, you know that. Well, you know, I'm almost 60. And when I was a kid, I watched Bugs Bunny. And Bugs Bunny actually had a scene where he said that. And I actually was able to find it.
1, little 2, little 3, little Indian.
Okay, so there it is. So I want to touch on this, right? And I may have to pause the video because I got the other, you know, there's another comment that I got laced in here a little bit later. There used to be a saying when I was growing up, sticks and stones may break my bones, but names will never hurt me. And I don't know when it became such a thing that saying doesn't exist anymore. And I got my panties in a twist because you said something that offended me. And I'm going to pause the video right here, and I'm going to expand on this a little bit. You know, not too long ago, I was in a bookstore, and I knew the people in the bookstore. I was in there all the time. And it was about the time when, you know, there was a big thing about the Confederate flag, and they were taking down all of their Dukes of Hazzard 1969, you know, Challengers, right? Because they had General Lee's, because they had the Confederate flag on it. And this one person asked me, they said, well, what do you think? Yeah, hey, Sea Bear, what do you think, right? And I said, you know what? This is a free country, right? And as far as I'm concerned, you can say or do anything you want so long as you're not stepping on my rights. If you want to fly an American flag, God bless you. If you want to fly a Confederate flag, more power to you. You want to fly a Nazi flag? Well, you know, you may not be the most popular guy in the neighborhood, but you have the right to fly it. And this guy came up to me and says, you know, I have the right not to be offended. I said, really? I said, you know, I've read the Constitution. I've read the Federalist Papers. I've read the Anti-Federalist Papers. I've read the Declaration of Independence. I said, all of those founding documents, that right was never defined. And the very fact that you are ignorant of that offends me. So you're violating my right not to be offended. You know, when we start hyphenating, you know, things like justice or crimes or hate speech, we are lessening what it is, right? Speech is speech. Free speech is free speech. I have the right to say anything I want. You have the right to be offended and not watch my videos. You have the right to pull the panties out of your ass and not watch my videos. You do not have the right to sit there and try to cancel me or tell me things that I need to think more like you. That does not play in my book. That is not freedom. That is tyranny. Okay? Second thing, hate crimes. Okay. Crime is crime. And when you commit a crime, your motivation is irrelevant, right? You committed the crime. You killed somebody, you smacked somebody around, you drove drunk, whatever. Your motivation is irrelevant. The fact is you broke the law. When you start hyphenating it, you are now trying to shape society to punish people for having thought patterns that you don't agree to. So if there's hate crimes, and I'm going to pause it right here because it's coming up on the next comment. If there's hate crimes because, my crime was committed by an emotion, should there be happy crimes? Hey, I was out celebrating and I had one too many, and so I got in the car and I drove drunk. Is that a happy crime? Should I be tried for happy crimes? How about, crimes to envy? You have more than me, so I'm going to rob you because I'm envious. That's a feeling. Should I hyphenate that crime? We need to stop this pattern of hyphenating everything. Environmental justice, criminal, or racial justice, right? When you hyphenate anything, you diminish the value of it. Okay? We need to stop this. It's destroying freedom in this country, and it's trying to shape our thought patterns, and we need to stop it. Because you will never be free if you're hyphenating justice, freedoms, speech, whatever. Okay? If you don't believe me or like that, comment below. This next comment, I have no idea where this came from, right? I'm going to read it to you in case you guys are just listening, because some of you say you don't watch the video, you just listen. Okay, so this guy, I blurted out. Don't be proudful of what? That since you removed Saddam Hussein and the strange Libyan king Gaddafi, probably in fact back then the only two stable factors in the Middle East, but the Middle East in Europa. Yes, we now have the Middle East in Europa. Thanks a lot, with like 3 or 4 exclamation points. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Right? I commented back. I'm like, what are you talking about? I have no idea what you're talking about. I didn't, And he came back and said, these Americans with their pride of what? That you ruined Europa because you needed for political reasons to meddle in the Middle East. Europa shall be turning Islamic soon, thanks to you and your bloody pride. Okay, so this one's going to get interesting. We're talking about Islamic migrations. And I responded back to this guy. I said, need I remind you that, quote-unquote, Europa, meaning Europe, the continent of Europe, that they colonized the Middle East? They conquered and colonized it. For example, the United Kingdom colonized and ruled Egypt, Iraq, Palestine, Jordan, Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, United Arab Emirates, Oman, and South Yemen. France colonized and ruled Lebanon, Algeria, and Tunisia. Italy colonized Libya. Portugal colonized Oman and Iran. Spain colonized Morocco, and Germany influenced the Ottoman Empire. And I don't know where this guy gets off about blaming America for Muslims moving into Europe. It's been going on since the 7th century. People have the memory of a goldfish. I mean this. They really, really do. Because, the Moors, they were called Moors back then, were quote-unquote invading Europe, to the point where in 1478, Queen Isabella of Spain launched the Inquisition. A lot of people think the Inquisition was about converting Jews to Christianity. In fact, on that History of the World by Mel Brooks, he jokes about the Inquisition and torturing Jews. Not a funny topic, but the point is that the reason why the Inquisition was launched has been lost or distorted over time. The reason why Queen Isabella launched the Inquisition was her attempt to cleanse Spain of the Moors. The Moors had been invading Europe for over 700 years at that time, right? So they started invading, quote-unquote invading, Europe around 700 AD. none of these actions from Europe could possibly have anything to do with the Islamic migration into Europe today. Absolutely not. Just like China forgot about the Opium Wars when, Britain actually had launched war against China because the Chinese government at the time didn't want Great Britain importing opium into China, so they had the Opium Wars. And one of the benefits of that was that, China lost, and Britain got Hong Kong, which wasn't relinquished until 1996. So, and if you ever study the Opium Wars, it's really interesting that the Western nations actually jumped on to the treaty of the Opium War Treaty, and it allowed Westerners to actually go into China and be absolved of any crimes by Chinese law. So an American, for instance, the United States signed on to it. Americans could go into China and murder someone and be untouchable by Chinese law. And and do you honestly think that that's not a reason why the Chinese government today kind of has an attitude? Not every, a lot of people in this world have been wronged, and they never, they'll never forget, right? And, the way, Europe treated the Islamic, quote-unquote, invasion in the 700 AD and the Inquisition couldn't possibly have anything to do with what's going on today. Now, I'm gonna expand on this topic, and this one, some people may not like this. But through observation and actual study, the way, Muhammad instructed his people to spread the religion, just like Christians are supposed to spread the religion, but we're not supposed to do it violently. The Muslims and the Islamic religion, the Muslims, basically what they do is they will migrate into a country. They will migrate into a country and set up little communities, and they breed like rabbits, where Westerners, we don't want to have more than 1 or 2 kids because it's an inconvenience. Well, they spit out kids like rabbits, okay? So it doesn't take long before their little communities have the majority, in which case they start electing their own people into positions of power. Once that happens and they gain power, then they start imposing Sharia law. This has happened in France, around Paris. It is happening in the United States. It is happening in Dearborn, Michigan. It is happening up in Minnesota. And it's happening right now in New York City, right? You guys just elected a Muslim mayor, and there's already talk of Sharia law, going into effect, and or not full effect, but they're talking about implementing some Sharia law aspects into New York City. So I mean, this is how they plan on spreading their religion worldwide. It's kind of like, well, for lack of better terms, like a virus, right? You infect the host, you multiply like crazy, you take over the host, and that's exactly what they are doing. They're, and that's the truth, right? Whether you like it or not, they are, an invasive species. If you want to look at it that way, it depends on your point of view. I try to look at everybody the same, right? Everybody is dollar bill green. I don't care. I don't care what color you are. I don't care what creed you are. I don't care who or what you sleep with. What I do care about is when your belief starts getting in my way, when it starts violating my rights, then I take exception, right? So don't tell me that your deviant lifestyle is normal. Do not teach my children your deviant lifestyle is normal in schools. I got a problem when that starts happening. When your religion starts trying to usurp the Constitution to impose Sharia law, I got an issue with that. Real simple, right? I am a constitutionalist. I took an oath to support and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. That oath has no expiration date. If we went to war today, I would be grabbing my rifle to defend that Constitution. So, you know, that's... I still don't understand where this guy... I don't think I've ever said anything about Islamic migrations or Saddam Hussein or Muammar Gaddafi, and I never spoke to any in Libya. Never spoke of any of this. So I don't know if he mixed up my video for one of his own, or one, you know, or another one. But you know, so there it is. You know, those are the comments I wanted to touch on. As I said, the next video I want to touch on is going to be making money. I think it might be 2, but you know, and I'm also I want your opinion, right? Please comment below. So, you know, I'm gonna walk you through how to start up a small business online that really doesn't cost you anything. You have 90 days before a penny leaves your pocket. And, you know, then what I'm thinking is that you should take that money and use it to move into the real estate business. You can move into real estate without investing, you know, buying houses and, you know, big stuff, right? You know, you can actually do it for, you know, I started for 35 bucks. I actually got into, you know, real estate business for 35 bucks, and I made $1,000 on that 35 bucks in about 2 weeks. Didn't take much out, you know, and I'll talk to you guys about that. But I'm willing to plant the seeds and give you ideas. Now, I'm toying with the idea, and I'm asking your opinion here. If you guys want to pursue that, right, I'm thinking that I could put together a step-by-step video series on, okay, do this number 1, do this number 2. I could also, you know, show you guys the contracts that I wrote that have been legally binding in every case I've needed to test them on, and give you guys, you know, those contracts that you can then use to move your business forward. But that's labor, right? That's actual, that's time out of, you know, that I actually spent. So I was thinking about putting that behind a paywall. If you want copies of the contracts, if you want a step-by-step guide, right? You know, I don't know what, 20 bucks, 50 bucks. What do you guys think's fair for, you know, enough knowledge to get you started in real estate? I'm no Trump, right? I don't have billions of dollars, but there's you can get into a real estate, and if you do it right, you know, the way I did it is I was making about 200 bucks a month for every deal for 3 years, right? And you know, that had a hell of a return, right? We're talking like 300% return on profit. So, you know, I want your opinion, right? You know, would you guys be willing to pay for the contracts? Would you be willing to pay for the, you know, for that kind of knowledge? I love blowing tanks. No dinner required. So anyways, you know, that's going to be the next one. And by the way, I think the next Workup Wednesday, I'm going to talk about, you know, how to blow tanks. No dinner required. That's going to be the subject line, or the title. How to blow a tank, no dinner required. And then, you know, I might do another comment section, but if I don't start seeing some higher numbers, you know, I may abandon this and just go back to my regular rants. If they fall off and, you know, I fall into obscurity, well, I've had my 15 minutes of fame. And if YouTube wants to demonetize me because of racist and inappropriate comments, because I said 1 little 2 little 3 little Indian, well, I'm out 20 bucks, right? That's all I've made on YouTube so far is 20 bucks. So, you know, I'm sitting, I don't know, what, 15 minutes or so. I'm going to end this here. Thank you so much for watching and commenting. Thank you so much for giving me time out of your busy day to watch my videos. I am humbled and honored that you do so. I do read every comment. I don't respond to everyone, but I do read them. And so that's it for this one. And thank you again. And let me know how the microphone sounds. And this is Sea Bear, out.